So to me, it's Roberts.
Well,
Pearson. Congrats, bud.
Mazel tov. All right. So, like I said, we have a lot to discuss. Let's start with the main event on Saturday. Dustin Poirier defeats Dan Hooker in a 5-round affair. I thought it was going to go the distance. I didn't think they'd be able to finish each other because they're just so tough. Let me ask you this right off the bat. You know what's so great about this fight? It was amazing, and there doesn't seem to be any controversy. It feels like everyone thinks Dustin won. Do you agree?
Yes, because in the 5th round, the fight was on the table, right? It was pretty clear. Rounds 3 and 4, Dustin won those rounds. Rounds 1 and 2 favored Dan Hooker. He controlled the pace. He was long. He was landing when he wanted. Into the 2nd round, I was very worried for Dustin Poirier because it looked like it was going in the wrong direction. But then he got a second win or something because it looked like he was fatiguing early. But 3rd round, he fought great. 4th round, he fought great. And I thought the 5th round was his best round in the entire fight. And it feels good to have a fight that was so good and people aren't like in an uproar because they don't know who won the fight. It was clear, especially with the way that the 5th round went. It was a great fight, though. I loved every second of it.
Yeah, I had it 3-2 for Dustin. First 2 rounds to Hooker. The end of the 2nd round where he landed 10 straight punches on Dustin. I don't know how he survived that.
Bro, I was so scared because I was so scared. Oh, Dustin's one of my friends, right?
Yes.
So I'm not trying to hide that, but I was watching him, and there was a time in Dustin's career where he melted when those things would happen, right? When things started to go south, he never would respond as well as he does today. And I think now, man, the finished version of Dustin Poirier is as good as almost anybody in the world. I think he's clearly the 2nd best lightweight in the world. I'm going to say it. I think it's true. I just think that Khabib has kind of separated himself because you got to remember he beat Justin Gaethje, who's fighting for the belt next. So big win for Dustin. But honestly, hats off to Dan Hooker too for what a phenomenal performance. I thought both of those guys showed a lot of growth in that fight because you got to remember we've always known Dan Hooker was tough. We saw him take that horrible beating from Edson Barbosa a long time ago, right? And we were on the side of the octagon yelling for the fight to be stopped and all that, but he stayed in there. And this weekend he showed that not only is he tough, but he has now learned to make adjustments to keep himself in the fight much more than he did before. Because if he would have did what he did against Edson, Dustin would have kept just picking him apart. But instead, he kind of reversed, right? He went to his wrestling to kind of slow down and minimize the damage a little bit. And I think that allowed for him to stay in that fight because he was taking some big shots.
I saw someone say this over the weekend that at some Dustin, I agree with you. You can make a case that he's the 2nd best lightweight in the world, and his evolution, not only as a fighter but as a person as well. And we'll talk about the great things that he does with the Good Fight Foundation. And he got that award over the weekend, the Forrest Griffin Award from the UFC for his community work. He's really turned into one of the elite fighters in the sport. But do you worry that he takes too much damage in these fights? Like every single one of his fights, even in a victory, he's all beat up going to the hospital.
Yeah, he does take a lot of damage, but it's the way that he fights, right? Honestly, man, most guys that are strikers like that and power strikers like Dustin is, they're going to take a lot of damage because in order to inflict the damage that you want on your opponent, you have to take a lot coming back. And you saw that this weekend. Dustin had to kind of go through the fire a little bit in order to eventually get to Dan Hooker in the way that he wanted.